If somebody's rule book for their life says all about me, there will not be a chapter for you. And the moment you veer off serving that purpose for them, the moment you're authentic, the moment you express your feelings, the moment you express to them that they hurt you in some way, you veered off the script. They don't want you to feel like you belong in their life. They want you to keep earning your place in their life. But there is no place for you. It's a placeholder. And when you're not there, somebody else fills that place. And they're never going to be better with the next person. They're never going to be better with the next person. All they're going to do is play the same game they played with you. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Words with me, Nejwa Zabian. I've always been a firm believer in the power of words to heal what they didn't break and to break what they had no right in breaking. Today's episode is so on brand for Beyond Words because it's all about the impact that someone's words and actions can have on you. Sometimes when you can't really name it, you can't really label it, you can't really clearly see through it. If you've experienced this before, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it is gaslighting. Today's episode is titled The Truth About Gaslighting because there's so much out there. I want to bring some sanity to the topic. Gaslighting isn't just somebody lying to you once or twice. Gaslighting is a pattern. It's actually a lot more sinister than we think. Some people describe it in a way that makes you feel like maybe if you were a little bit smarter, maybe if you could read people a little bit better, you'll be able to tell when somebody's gaslighting you. But the truth is, gaslighters are so skilled at what they do that they will pull the rug from underneath you while you're looking at them, while they're smiling at you. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how to make it seem seamless. And you get to a point where you look at your space, you look at your reality, you look at your life and say, when did this happen? Like, how did I get to a point where my view of my reality is so distorted? How did this happen? It didn't happen because something's wrong with you. It happened because something wrong was done to you. It didn't happen because you just can't see people for who they are. It happened because somebody showed you a version of them that would never gaslight you, that would never try to erode your reality. If you feel like somebody has gaslighted you for so long and you're finally putting two and two together, or if you're fully aware of the history of what they've done to you and now you're coming to the point where you can clearly see, this episode is for you. I want you to remember to not blame yourself for what they chose to do to you. It's easy to say, well, I had a gut feeling and my intuition was screaming at me, but I silenced it for so long. Something must be wrong with me. It's easy to speak to yourself in that way, but we're not doing that anymore. Now we're seeing things clearly. I want to talk about 5 signs that you are being gaslighted, or 5 signs that you are with somebody who is gaslighting you. And the reason we should go over these signs is once you're able to label things clearly, when you go back in your mind to certain memories that you had with them, however long they were, maybe this happened today or yesterday, and you're able to see the tactics that they use in conversation and in actions, you're able to say, this person gaslighted me. You're able to change the narrative from, I'm so dumb, to, wow, they're really good at what they do. And moving forward, I'm going to be aware of this until I get to a point where I say to myself, I'm no longer putting up with this. I could see it so clearly. This is a very sensitive topic because people think that if you're able to name the gaslighting, then you should be able to walk away instantly. And that's one of the biggest myths that I need to dispel, and I need you to get that idea out of your head. It is a lot harder. It's an infinite times harder to leave somebody who gaslighted you for so long than it is to leave somebody who you can see everything clearly. Both are hard. But when you've been put in an environment that is intentionally working to make you doubt yourself, to make you doubt your perception of reality, to make you doubt your own feelings, to make you doubt your intelligence, to make you doubt your right to feel upset when your boundaries are overstepped. When you're in an environment like that for so long, guess what starts to happen? They don't need to gaslight you anymore. You start gaslighting yourself. They've trained you so well to minimize your feelings, to minimize your reactions, to minimize your voice and stay small and stay quiet. By the end of it, they don't need to do anything anymore. You've started doing it to yourself. And so it's so important for you to be able to continue in a dynamic that you know is bad for you, but now instead of it just feeling bad, you're becoming aware of all the parts of it that are bad. The reason I keep pausing and I keep adding these tangents is I know that people who've never been through gaslighting do not understand just how hidden and systemic it is. They don't know how subtle it can be. They think just because I, as an outsider, see it clearly, you, as the person who's receiving the gaslighting, should see it clearly too. That's how they think. They don't see that you've been put in a cloudy, muddy, murky environment for so long that no, you can't see things clearly anymore. The person could be yelling at you and calling you names, and your mind doesn't say, danger. Your mind says, I've experienced this before, so it'll pass. An outsider looking in will say, what the hell are you doing? I'm not that outsider. I'm the insider that's telling you, I get it. If you're in any kind of relationship where you're being gaslighted currently, these are some of the things that I want you to start watching out for. And there's some of the things that I want you to go back in your mind to all the times that they've tried to gaslight you and say, oh, this is what they were doing. First sign I want you to look out for is you leave conversations more confused than when you started. You ask them a question. Hey, you said that thing. What did you mean by it? Or I felt this way when you said that thing. Is this actually what you meant? And the conversation will go from you expressing your feelings about something they did or said to you being a terrible person, to you being somebody who is selfish, to you being somebody who raised your voice, or you're not speaking with the right tone, or you being somebody who is accusing them of something. And the conversation ends and you forget what you started it with. And so what you're learning from this dynamic over time is you're better off not bringing anything up at all, because you will be more confused by the end than when you started. You have to understand that somebody who has the ability to gaslight you and who's intentionally made the decision in their mind that it's okay for them to gaslight you, they don't care about giving you clarity. They actually revel in the idea that they've done something or said something that got a reaction out of you. They love the fact that you're seeking clarity from them. Stop seeking clarity from people who intend to keep you confused. Stop seeking clarity from people who feel happy at your confusion. Stop seeking clarity from people who intentionally want to keep your vision blurred. Not just about yourself and your reality, but about the reality of what they're doing to you. Stop seeking clarity from somebody who needs you confused. Because the moment you're able to see things clearly, you're going to walk out the door. They don't want you walking out the door. They know that the price of keeping you is to keep you confused. Why? Because they don't have the capacity to give you honesty. And they know that. They don't have the capacity to keep up the facade of the person they convinced you they were at the beginning of the relationship. And they know that. So instead of them admitting those things out loud to you and saying, hey, I wasn't fully honest about who I was, I don't have the capacity to love you properly, they're going to keep you confused and looking for answers. Because you know what the toughest thing in life is? It's not knowing the answer to something. And so when you don't know the answer, you keep seeking it. And with somebody who's gaslighting you, the longer you keep seeking that clarity, the longer you keep seeking that answer, the deeper that your hook to them becomes. The bond that holds you to them becomes thicker and thicker, and there's knots in it, and it feels so much harder to break free from it. So I want you to reflect on the conversations you've had with this person. Even if they were in your past, but you're still suffering from what they did to you. What was the nature of those conversations? Did you ever get clarity from them? If you didn't, you have your answer. It's not hard to tell somebody who asks you, hey, do you love me? Of course I love you. Hey, that thing that you said made me feel like maybe you don't care about me the way that I thought you did. Of course I care about you. I'm sorry that I said it that way. I will make sure next time when I say something that I'm aware of how sensitive you are to those things. Hey, the way that you moved your body language when I said that thing, the way you looked at me, it made me feel like maybe you were upset by something I said. Is that feeling valid? Oh, I was just thinking about something else. I'm really sorry. I'll make sure next time when you're saying something that I try my best to be as present as possible with you. It's not hard to give somebody clarity. So if you're spending an hour, 2 hours with somebody who just did something that made you feel a certain way, and instead of them giving you a clear answer, you're going in circles. You know your answer and you know the kind of person that you're dealing with. The second sign that I want you to keep your eye out for is you end up apologizing when you did nothing wrong. You end up apologizing when they did something wrong, but you just brought it up. But the problem is that you brought it up. It's not that they did the thing that you said they did. The problem isn't the fact that they did something wrong that they need to apologize for. The problem becomes that you brought up the bad thing they did that they should be apologizing for. If shame was brought up for them as a result of doing the bad thing that they need to apologize for, they blame you for bringing that shame up because you brought up the bad thing that brings up shame for them. That's not normal. That's not healthy. I can tell you an infinite number of times that I've experienced this, and I understand over time you become immune to this kind of behavior. You become very normalized to it. It becomes normalized to you. That's a better way to say it. But your system stops seeing it as a red flag and it starts seeing it as they do this all the time. I know this is how they react. It's a trauma response. They've experienced this in their childhood. They this, they that. They always end up apologizing. Maybe they don't, but they sometimes apologize, and not necessarily through their words, but through their actions. And you give all these excuses and you get used to it over time. I cannot stress this enough, okay? Listen to me very carefully. When somebody who genuinely cares about you hurts you in some way, they do not make you apologize for bringing up the thing they did that hurt you. It's not normal for you to feel like the bad guy in a situation where you were mistreated. They were the bad guy. But the tables turn. And I've brought this term up before. DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. A person who gaslights you will use a strategy like that. They'll deny what they did. They'll attack you for something, bringing it up. You're too loud saying that. This is the wrong time for you to bring it up. You're too sensitive. And then the roles are reversed. You were the victim of what they did to you. Now they're a victim of you bringing up what they did to you. And now they're a victim of your reaction to what they did to you. And let me be clear. Had they not done the thing they did to hurt you, you would not have had the reaction that is so overblown. They want you to believe it's overblown. When we think of topics like reactive abuse, and I know this is a really sensitive topic, I didn't intend to talk about it today, but you know what? We're going to talk about it. Reactive abuse to outsiders makes the victim look like they are the offender. Think of Taylor Frankie Paul and the video that was released by her ex, making her look absolutely crazy. And then information comes out that he had locked her in the garage prior to this incident for so long, locked her out. And then when it was convenient for him to show that she's overreacting, that she's crazy, that she's throwing things around, he recorded it for the world to see, and he was extremely calm. One of the telltale signs of who the abuser or perpetrator in a relationship dynamic is when they're showing you their crazy partner. If you're not watching the video, I am putting air quotes, crazy partner. They're extremely calm and their partner is completely distressed. And here's a question I need you to ask yourself if you've witnessed something like this. If somebody genuinely cared about their partner and they were in that much distress, would they be that calm watching that? Would their first instinct be to bring their phone and be like, yep, do that a little bit more. Let me capture you from this angle. Is that what a caring partner would do? Or would they get help for that partner? In the face of somebody treating you very badly, if you're that calm force that's like reveling in seeing your partner behave that way, you're the problem. And more than likely, you're the one who instigated that reaction. And we don't talk about that enough because it's controversial. Because, oh, there's no evidence, and oh, this person looks like they're crazy. But if two people are on their way to an event where one person is constantly poking at the other with insults, with verbal abuse, with criticism, with bringing things up that have no place being brought up at that point, and they get to that event and you see the one who's distressed, who just needs one more poke to lose their mind on everybody, you didn't see what led up to it. And a person who's a gaslighter, a person who's an abuser of any way knows this. They know what they can get away with in private, and they know what it takes to be able to paint the person who's with them as the bad guy. They know what they're doing. So the next time you witness something like this, if you are an outsider to it, think, of the calm one and think of what a normal, healthy partner, what their response would be to their partner being distressed that much. Okay? And if you are the one who's in it, who's being gaslighted, who's being painted as the bad guy, this is your clarity. You know that they know what they're doing. And if you're in it still, I understand the fear you have of not reacting to them. Because what do they do when you stop reacting? They escalate. They get worse. You know this. And so it's safer for you to react or pretend to care about what they're saying than it is for you to be that calm person who's like, I'm just going to let this go. I'm just going to let this slide. I'm not even going to let this affect me. Because you know that they know that when you start becoming quiet, they know what the next step is. That you're leaving. And so instead of them taking that fear as an indication to treat you better, they will think of the worst thing they could do to you and they'll do it. And I know that's scary and I know it's dangerous. And that's why I put a disclaimer near the beginning of this episode saying, this is a very sensitive topic. People think once you can say, I'm being gaslighted, I'm going to leave. It's not that easy. And we know that people who are abusive in that way become mostly dangerous when they sense that we're leaving. So whatever you need to do to protect yourself, do not worry about anyone's judgment. Let them ask you 1,000,000 times, why are you still there? You know why you're still there. And you know that when you feel safe enough to take those steps safely and intelligently, that you will do it. The third sign that I want you to watch out for is, do you find yourself constantly checking your memories? Like, am I remembering this correctly? And you might record things so that you could listen to them after and make sure that you remember things properly. You might write things down in a journal and say, this happened at this time. Because you know what happens when you're with somebody who constantly gaslights you and who intends to warp your understanding of your whole reality and how smart you are and how discerning you are. You start experiencing something that messes with your mind. And it's called brain fog. You'll go through times where you feel like you can't think straight. You can't remember what you did 3 days ago. There's certain memories that are completely blocked in your mind or they're rewritten. And why does that happen? They want to convince you that happened because you're crazy and because something's wrong with you. But the truth is, you get brain fog as a protective mechanism. Because if you could constantly remember how bad things were or how bad things are, think of how painful that is. To constantly live with the reality that you are accepting this and you're not doing anything about it. When you know your reasons are also protective. Your reasons are also to survive. Your reasons are also, I can't see things clearly. I've lost myself so much that I don't even know who I am outside of this relationship. You know your reasons, but brain fog in those instances happens, like when you start forgetting important details or when you feel like, oh, maybe I'm just getting older and my memories are just not as good. Maybe that works, but maybe you're being gaslighted. Like maybe it's actually your memory and it's a biological thing, but also maybe you're being gaslighted. And these are the effects of you constantly feeling confused. And if you're constantly being accused of being forgetful or not remembering certain details or remembering certain details the wrong way, and you're constantly on alert to remember every single thing, and you feel like if you don't remember every single thing or if you don't do every single thing properly, perfectly is the more proper word, that you're going to get in trouble. And so you're on alert to remember everything. And how much is your mind going to remember when you're trying to remember such insignificant things? You know, you're not a one of those big memory banks that just remembers absolutely everything. Your brain has only a certain capacity, and you're not supposed to be on hyper alert all the time. But with somebody who's gaslighting you, that is the case. They could get upset with you at something as simple as seeing a little speck of dust on a glass. They could get upset with you for closing the door a little bit too loudly. They could get upset with you for color you chose to wear on a certain day. They could get upset with you for things that are not normal or healthy for a partner to get upset with you over. But you've gotten used to it. And if a friend of yours was going through this, you would be able to quickly name it. But you tell yourself, that's how they are. And that's all I've known. And that's my familiar. I could talk about this topic for ages, and I know I'm already over the time limit that I had in my mind for this episode, but we still have 2 more signs that I want to go over. If you feel like you want me to talk more on this topic, let me know, because I could go on and on. I could make this whole podcast about gaslighting, actually. I could bring you, it's not funny, it's sad, actually, but I could bring you multiple stories from my life that I've lost count of that I can share with you on gaslighting. It's not easy to go through these experiences, and I understand how hard it is to find somebody who talks about it in a way where you can tell they've experienced it. Because people who go through gaslighting need their own community. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. But you need your own community of people who don't see it as this stigmatized thing that only a small portion of people go through and something must be wrong with you to accept something like that. I get it. The 4th sign that I want you to be aware of is their version of events always the quote-unquote right one? Are they always the ones who remember things and their version of events is the one that you have to accept was the version of events? So if you bring something up to them that made you insecure, made you feel insecure about how they feel about you, and instead of them validating you and apologizing and acknowledging, yeah, you know what, I see how that would have made you feel that way, it turns around to, that's not actually what happened. And I really don't understand why you're feeling insecure right now, when you know very well that you had the right to feel that way. Because if you did to them the thing they did to you, all hell would break loose. And you know that. And they've made it clear to you multiple times in the past over things that were much less severe and much less intense than the thing they just did that you brought up to them. But you're not living by your rule book, and you're not living by the rule book of life of what's fair and what's not fair and what's right and what's not right. You're living by their rule book, and their rule book is titled, a gaslighter's rule book is titled, All About Me. Where do you fit in that? If somebody's rule book for their life says, all about me, the chapters are going to be, what serves me? What's best for me? What makes me feel good? What am I willing to take accountability for? Hint, nothing. What am I responsible for? My own happiness. That's it. Those are going to be the chapters. There will not be a chapter for you. There will not be a section for you. You fall under the how do I achieve my happiness? How do I achieve the life that I want? You serve a purpose for them. And the moment you veer off serving that purpose for them, the moment you're authentic, the moment you express your feelings, the moment you express to them that they hurt you in some way, you veered off the script. They don't want you to feel like you belong in their life. They want you to keep earning your place in their life. But there is no place for you. It's a placeholder. And when you're not there, somebody else fills that place. And when that person's not there, somebody else fills that place. And they're never going to be better with the next person. They're never going to be better with the next person. All they're going to do is play the same game they played with you. So I need you to get the idea out of your head that, oh, now that I've taught them all these things, they're going to be so much better for the next person. A gaslighter learns nothing from you. You are just an experiment for them so they could get better at their game. That's it. They don't learn authenticity from you. They don't learn empathy from you. They don't learn consideration from you. They learn how to get better at the game. So let them do that. You don't want to be part of it anymore. The last sign I want you to watch out for, and this is honestly the most heartbreaking one, is you start shrinking. I get goosebumps saying these words because no one understands the pain of knowing how great you are, knowing how intelligent you are, knowing how accomplished you are, knowing how empathetic and kind you are. But you're in an environment that grabs you and goes like this. And then more than that, and more than that, and more than that, until you get to a point where you're just a small fraction of who you know you are. Who you fully are still exists as like a halo around you that's telling you this is not how small we actually are. But it's not safe to go like this, because the moment you do this, you're going to get that again. You're safer staying this small. They normalize you staying small. They normalize you actually making yourself smaller. They normalize you not sharing your good news. They normalize you not showing that you've had a great day. They normalize you not showing your empathy. They normalize you not getting up and jumping for joy for something or showing any kind of emotion. You start to feel like you have no idea who you are anymore, but you know who you are. But you're not allowed to be in touch with who you are. Because the moment you do this, you're going to be crushed again. And it's going to hurt even more. So why go through that, right? You stay this small. You don't deserve that. A person who gaslights you wants you to feel like you're even smaller than the smallest version of yourself that you've become to adapt to their environment. Maybe this will be our words that found me. I intended to use different words, but I'm going to use these ones. I was reading the book by Lundy Bancroft called Why Does He Do That? And it's about abusive men. And I started doing some more research on him and reading articles by him. And I stumbled upon an article that's titled something like, Why Do You Feel Like the Abuser Hates You? And I read a sentence that, I kid you not, made me feel like my soul left my body, but then it like snapped right back in a way where I just saw everything so clearly. And it says this: the abuser hates you simply because you exist, because you breathe, because you have a life. Somebody who has systemically gaslighted you will make you constantly question, what did I do to deserve this? You did nothing to deserve this. In their view, you deserve this because you dare to exist outside of them. They want to swallow you whole. They want you to fit the version that they need that person in that chapter, in that book that's titled All About Me. And when you exist for any other purpose than serving them or being there for them and being what they need you to be, they despise you because how dare you? They've learned that they have the right to swallow you whole. That's why they've shrunken you this much. This episode, let me just say, will be a lot probably more powerful if you're watching it on YouTube, because you've heard me crumple a piece of paper, but to see it and to see me constantly trying to make it smaller will remind you of what's happening to you. You might even grab a piece of paper yourself and do this. This is what they're doing to you. They make you this small so that they could swallow you whole, so that you could become only a part of them. But that doesn't happen. It never happens. It's a fantasy. And so the more time goes on that it doesn't happen, the more they despise you. And you'll find yourself working so hard to please them. And you find that the more good you do, the more they hate you. It doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't make sense. Because their goal isn't to have a healthy relationship with you. Their goal is to erase you. I talk about gaslighting in The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You. And it was so hard for me to talk about it. But the way I describe it is, it's a systemic erasure of who you are. Like, this is not just a lie. Or 2 or 3. It's not somebody who just is a liar and you end up at the receiving end of the lies. Their goal is to erase you. So this leads me to the most important part of this episode. Stop seeking clarity from somebody who wants to keep you confused. The one who broke you cannot be the one who heals you. The one who wants to keep you confused can't be the one who gives you clarity. Period. Full stop. You think that somebody who intentionally wants you to feel like you're crazy, if you show them that they've done this elaborate thing to make you feel crazy, that they're going to be like, oh, you're right, and I'm so sorry. No. They're going to feel exposed. And you know what a gaslighter does when they feel exposed? They run away. They go somewhere else where they haven't been exposed yet. Because just the fact that you've seen their true colors makes you the bad guy. How dare you see the terrible things I've done to you? How dare you see that I've intended to treat you this way? How dare you see that I've done this to you over time? Let me go find somebody who looks more like this, and I'll do the same thing to them. And I'll hope this time that they will let me swallow them whole. And I hope this time that they will dedicate their whole life to me. Stop seeking clarity from somebody who needs to keep you confused. We have a saying in Arabic that says, I sharpened my tongue repeating something. And I think this episode, I repeated it that many times. Stop seeking clarity from somebody who needs to keep you confused. They do not have your best interest in mind. They only think of themselves. A person who wants to keep you confused, a person who thrives on your confusion, will not give you clarity even though it's easy. It's simple. Confusion is a gaslighter's best weapon. And you fall for it. Why? Because you're somebody who sees the best in people and who would never do that to somebody. So thank the heavens that it doesn't make sense to you. But now that you have this clarity, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to give you very quickly 3 tips that I want you to do anytime you feel like you're seeking clarity from them. Anytime you feel like you need to explain something to them. Stop yourself. I know it's hard, but I need you to remember this. Trying to explain yourself to somebody who's gaslighting you is like putting your heart in a blender. I know it's a graphic image, but it's the truth. You're pouring yourself, and they're like, oh yeah, let me hurt you a little bit more. So you're going to do 3 things instead of reaching out to them or explaining yourself to them. The number 1 thing I want you to do is write it down in a journal, record it on a voice note in your phone, exactly what they did, what you said, what they said, and if you recognize any, if not all, of the signs we talked about in this episode. Do not make excuses for them as you're writing. Journal without any editing. Just say it as it is. And you'll be shocked at how much more clear you become when you're able to be the narrator. Because now you're not in their rule book, you're in yours. The second thing I want you to do, and you can have me as that person if you have nobody, because I know the first thing you're going to say is, I don't have people who are that close to me, or I've pushed away all the people who care enough about me, or I've repeated myself so many times and everybody gave up on me. I can be that person for you. You can send me a DM. You can send me an email. You can leave me a comment. Find somebody that you can share your stories with and your experiences with, who's a safe space for you. Somebody who's not going to put your heart in a blender when you share what you've been through. Somebody who's going to sit with you and make you a cup of tea and say, I am by your side no matter what happens. I support you no matter what you decide to do. I will always be here. One of the worst things you can do for someone you love who's going through an experience of being gaslighted is to tell them what to do. You know why? Because they are being told not only what to do by the person who's gaslighting them, they're being told who to be by that person. And what's stolen from them is their agency. It's their autonomy. So what are you doing when you tell them, leave? You're taking their agency and their autonomy. Your job is to be there as the supportive force that once they decide to make that decision, you're there. And when they're going through a tough time, you're there. And when they're being gaslighted again, you're there. That's how you show up. The third and final thing that I want you to do, the next time you feel like you want to reach out, you want to explain yourself, you want to do this, you want to do that, pause before you apologize and ask yourself, am I apologizing because I did something wrong, or am I apologizing to diffuse the situation, to make them feel like they're the good guy again, to make them forget that I brought up this terrible thing that they did? You don't need to apologize for bringing up how their actions hurt you. You don't need to apologize for bringing up the bad thing they did. You don't need to apologize for being a human with needs, of clarity, with needs of needing people to be honest with you, needing people to not withhold information from you, needing people to not gaslight the crap out of you, you don't need to apologize to them for that. So pause before you apologize. And the only time you should be apologizing is if the answer to this question is yes. Did I do something wrong? And please don't tell me, yes, the wrong thing I did is I brought this up at a time that I knew I shouldn't have brought it up. And I brought this up knowing that they're never going to admit what they did. That's not a wrong thing. That's something that they've gotten you used to over time, to give them excuses. I know this was a very heavy episode. So if you're coming to the end of this right now, I want you to take some time to sit with this heaviness and remind yourself that simply being aware that somebody's gaslighting you isn't enough. Like, that's a start, but it's not enough. And there is work that needs to be done. And the more and more you can label what they're doing to you, the more and more you're going to be able to loosen the hold that the bond has on you. It's kind of like, imagine a really thick rope, and I use this analogy quite a bit in The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You. It's like you're grabbing scissors to a really thick rope, and every time you see something clearly, you're making that rope a little tiny bit thinner. You're breaking off little threads here and there until you get to a point where there's just one tiny string holding you to them, and you can say, I'm done. Goodbye. And you can do that. The words from me to you today are actually from The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You. And I remember writing this a while ago. And I remember being in tears as I wrote it because it meant something to me. And I know that it will make a difference for you. And this is from the actual manuscript for The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You, because we've edited it like 10 million times, and this is the final edit. So I'm going to read it to you from here. If you are a survivor of a trauma bond, I wrote this for you. Let them call you crazy. Let them call you insane. Let them call you delusional. Let them call you unreasonable. Abuse changes you. It makes you step out of yourself into a character you don't recognize. It throws you into a spiral of a trying to survive and making sense of what's happening. You won't recognize yourself anymore. Abuse changes you. You can't reach the tools that can get you out of there. And outsiders look in and see the way that you react to the abuse, but the abuse is invisible. They can only see your reactions, so they tell you that something must be wrong with you. When you try to explain that you're being abused, they look at you like, why don't you just leave? It must be your fault if you haven't made the change that you need to make to remove the person from your life. What they don't know is how hard that person worked for you to fall in love with them. They don't know that you're still attached to a person who doesn't exist, the person you first met. The people who ask you why you stay have no interest in sitting with you in your pain. They just want to rid themselves of the guilt of not helping you, standing by your side and supporting you. So let them call you crazy. I'm going to end this section here because there is a lot more that I want you to be able to read on your own when you get your copy of The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You. These are really heavy topics, and it's really difficult for me to share it out loud on the podcast when there's still a part of me that's like, this is a book I've written, and it shows so much of my life and my experiences. I kind of want to keep it private between me and you, you know? So once you get this in your hands and you're reading all of this, I want you to feel like we're sitting having tea together or coffee or whatever your drink of choice is, and we're talking about the things that the world doesn't want us to talk about. And so if this moved you in any way, I'm going to ask you again from the bottom of my heart to pre-order, because it helps me as an author. It helps this message get to the world, and it helps tell the world, like, these are the things that we're excited about. There's so much that's going on that's hyped up, that's overhyped, and this deserves to be overhyped, okay? It deserves the hype that I've been putting out about it ever since I started writing it. And it's really hard for me to brag about something that I did, but it's also a really sensitive topic because it's so personal to me. So if you resonated with any of this, the first thing I guess I should say is I'm sorry for what you've been made to believe is okay, because it's not. And there is a way out. There is a light, not necessarily at the end of the tunnel. Maybe you feel like you're in a much darker place, like really deep into the ground. There is a light somewhere. And I need you to remember that that light is inside of you. You can begin to light the way for yourself out of that darkness through seeing them clearly bit by bit for who they are, for no longer expecting the one who broke you to heal you, for no longer expecting the one who gaslighted you to give you clarity. If this episode helped you in any way, please leave a rating, review, share it with somebody, pre-order The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You, and listen to this as many times as you need. I know it was a great episode, and I know it helped you feel seen. Listen to it for 10 times if you need, as long as it reminds you that you are the one who's going to pave the path moving forward for yourself, not the person who did this to you. I hope this episode helped you find healing beyond words, and until next time, have a wonderful day.